It's Thursday, May 14th. I'm Amalia Johnson.
And I'm Chris Flavell.
And this is Your World in 5, where we give you the news from around the globe in just 5 minutes.
We start in South Asia, where two countries, Pakistan and Sri Lanka, have been vying for the world's attention recently. In both countries, the military has launched major attacks against rebel forces. In both countries, the fighting has produced large numbers of refugees, and in both countries, the situation now looks like it might only get worse.
So here at Your World in 5, we decided to give you a primer. Sri Lanka versus Pakistan, what's the bigger disaster? The answer, of course, depends on your criteria. Start with the death toll. In Sri Lanka, the UN estimates that 6,500 civilians have been killed since January. According to the Pakistan Institute for Peace Studies, some 1,700 civilians have been killed in Pakistan since last October.
But suppose we look at number of people displaced. In Pakistan, more than 500,000 people are estimated to have been turned into internal refugees by the latest fighting between the Taliban and the Pakistani military. In Sri Lanka, the UN estimated last week that some 200,000 have been displaced.
Now, what about global repercussions? This is a close one. The crisis in Sri Lanka is said to have influenced the elections in neighbouring India, where candidates blamed the Indian government for not intervening next door to stop the violence.
Whereas in Pakistan, the fight against the Taliban could ultimately help determine the legacy of US President Barack Obama. If the Pakistani government can't defeat the Taliban, the violence could well increase in neighbouring Afghanistan, and that in turn will make it even more difficult for Obama to make good on his commitment to stabilise that country.
On to Italy now, where finally something other than the Prime Minister's spectacular divorce is stimulating public debate. On Wednesday, the lower house of Italy's parliament strongly backed a tighter law regarding immigration, allowing authorities to fine migrants up to €10,000, which is close to about $13,000, if residing in the country illegally.
Combine this with recent comments from Silvio Berlusconi, the Italian PM, rejecting the idea of a multi-ethnic Italy and the new policy of donating boats to Libya, specifically for the use of returning migrants to that country, and it almost seems as if the Italians are just not keen on foreigners.
In Italy's defence, the country did see a remarkable 75% rise in immigration last year, with almost 36,000 migrants, both legal and illegal, trying to gain access to the country. According to the BBC, many Italians now feel as if they lack support from the European Union in dealing with the overwhelming migration, and thus many seem to support the new and stricter measures.
The Italian Senate still needs to pass the legislation before it can become law, but if it does, some of the other measures which will come into force include potential jail time for those who rent houses to illegal immigrants, a register of the country's homeless, and up to 3 years in prison, oddly, for anyone who insults the police. To the other side of the globe now, Peru has decided to polish the reputation of its police force. Its solution to the problem is banning homosexual police officers. The BBC reports that Peru's interior minister has introduced a regulation to indefinitely suspend any officer caught having sexual relations with someone of the same sex. The law also applies to officers caught having extramarital relations. The BBC notes that openly homosexual police are, to be fair, somewhat scarce in Peru.
And in China, an upcoming memoir by the former Secretary General of the Communist Party, Zhao Ziyang, who was fired in 1989 following the government crackdown in Tiananmen Square. During years of house arrest following his fall from power, the former party chief is said to have recorded up to 30 hours worth of audio tapes, which were then smuggled out of China to form the basis of the book. Zhao, often viewed as an avid reformist, is said to praise Western-style democracy in the book, and allegedly also claims that he was the one who pioneered the opening of China's economy to free market forces. The memoir is already available in Hong Kong, but interestingly, it's now set to go on sale in China from the end of May. The China of 2009 is a very different place than the China of 1989, but the events in Tiananmen Square remain strictly taboo, so reactions to the book are likely to be quite intense. While authorities are generally expected to ban the book after its local publication, one of Ziyang's closest former aides, who was actually jailed after the 1989 protests, still says the book will give party members a lot to think about. And that's it from us. I'm Amalia.
And I'm Chris. We hope we've given you a lot to think about. Please check us out on iTunes, and we'll see you next time.